OTB fam, how are you doing? We are back with a special edition of Outside the Box to discuss President Biden's first first joint address to Congress.
Claudia, that's right. Right now on the show, we're going to break down his speech. We're going to give you guys the rapid fire analysis of what he said and what he promised.
Please don't forget to share, subscribe, like if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. We're so glad you're here tonight on Outside the Box.
Let's do this, you guys. This time around, things were a little different. As you noticed, there were less people and there was a lot of security due to concerns of threats by extremist groups still happening.
That's right. And look, if you were watching this speech, you'll notice that there was a lot of empty room. Usually that House of Representatives room fits about 1,600 people, but present were only about 200 members of Congress.
Tonight, the president addressed so many topics that we're going to be getting into tonight. Immigration, COVID, gun reform, police reform. Tonight, the rapid fire analysis starts. Let's go.
All right, you guys, let's start off with first impressions. The first 100 days of, Biden being the president, first impressions of his speech. My first impression was that this was a historic moment because there were two women behind President Biden's shoulders. This is a historic line of succession of power here in the United States that we've never seen before. And it makes me truly happy that my niece, that my future daughters, if I have daughters, will be able to feel represented. You guys, what's your first impression?
Claudia, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it was a home run. And look, part of it might be the fact that he didn't really have an audience. Again, there used to be about 1,600 people there that would typically clap and cheer. You would have those emotional moments where you would call on a family, a survivor, or someone who's doing something in their community, a frontline worker, and they would stand up and everyone would cheer. And it would just sort of create this environment where the president was front and center talking about his agenda. And it didn't happen, partly because of the lack of audience, but partly because I just think Biden didn't have that energy coming in. I think part of that is because of the lack of victories that he can probably point to and the amount of challenges that still lay ahead. That's my analysis. It just really wasn't a home run.
Right, and there wasn't that traditional guest. I don't remember seeing him, unless I missed him, you guys. Did I? Yeah, then we honor a guest. He wasn't there either, or he or she. JP, what were your first impressions? What grade would you give his report card?
Well, right now, the Biden and his administration are going through the honeymoon phase, right? All the polls point towards right now in this very moment that he has approval ratings that are sky high. But usually this is normal for the first 100 days with any president. Actually, within Trump's administration, within his first 100 days, his approval rating within the polls were very high as well and decreases as time goes on. This time next year, we're going to see a completely different American public. They're going to be harsher. They're going to be more judgmental. They're going to want more results. So as far as his actual speech tonight, he got into a lot, presented a lot to the American public. But what we're all waiting to see, and we're going to get into it tonight with the specific topics, is what are the actions that are going to follow with these beautiful words that he said tonight. Not as great as a wordsmith as a Barack Obama, but definitely better than what we experienced these last 4 years.
His speech was definitely better than what I expected. His first speech to the nation, and I like what you said, JP, about the honeymoon phase, because that is so true. When he was talking, I was like, yeah, me está dando mucho floro. There's a lot of like, I'm gonna give you the stars and the moon, but we'll see if it'll actually happen. But let's move on to our first topic, y'all. All right, so we're gonna talk about the economy. Here are a few things that he said about the economy. He said he's going to bring jobs that don't require a college degree. 75% of those jobs are going to be for the blue collar workforce. He's going to increase taxes to those making over $400,000 a year. Also, reform corporate tax. Wadi, I know this is one of your favorite topics. So what do you have to say about his plan?
Look, the plan sounds nice, right? Whenever you hear that, or we're going to increase jobs, we're going to increase wages, like that definitely sounds nice. What American doesn't want that end goal? The problem is the vehicle by which he wants to do this. He focuses on two parts. One is on infrastructure. This plan of reviving the American economy relies on the fact that he's going to be increasing government spending into infrastructure, which would result in jobs, which would result in better roads, better airports, bridges. But the problem is that historically, these programs don't actually end up bettering our infrastructure. They create what are sometimes temporary jobs. And the problem is when the way he's going to pay for this vehicle of infrastructure is through raising taxes. Is raising taxes on capital gains, is raising taxes on higher earners. And I don't believe that it's actually going to pan out. I think the moment you start raising taxes, you start de-incentivizing a lot of people who move the economy. When you talk about capital gains, many times people just think of the ultra rich. The capital gains also apply to small investors, to smaller businesses, to young folk who are on Robinhood, trading Dogecoin and trading Bitcoin, right? These folks are going to be impacted by that. That family that maybe saved enough to flip that first home, they're going to have to pay capital gains when they flip it. I mean, these are actual increases that impact Americans. There are other ways to incentivize economic growth, and there are better ways to empower states who have a better pulse of what's actually needed when it comes to infrastructure and economic growth in their areas. That's why I believe that bill and that plan is actually going to be risky for our economy.
Thank you, Wadi, for your input on that risky business. JP, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with the plan?
Well, that plan is going to be debated. And I think what the Biden administration had with the economic stimulus package that they were able to pass during the first 100 days was huge public support. Not only are we talking about that honeymoon phase where a lot of people are a lot less interested, but what they definitely utilized to their advantage was the $1,400 stimulus checks. Most Americans highly favored that decision, and they supported that bill based on that headline that they were able to change the narrative in comparison to previous administrations. I know that Republican strategists right now are definitely going to speak up in a way bigger way against this bill because it's a huge economic package that involves so many different industries and sectors within our government that it's going to be hard to convince the Republican Party currently to say they're going to back a bill like this, a bill filled with pork. Now, if we sit down and we look at some of the things that he's trying to do with this bill, which is reform education, I think most people can come to terms with that. I think they can say if we want to provide free education for our preschoolers, parents all over the nation are going to support that. But as Wadi said, taxing higher earners is going to receive a huge backlash because who controls the lobbyists? High earners. And something that I didn't mention earlier, within his first 100 days, even though he said we a lot today during his address, has it really been we? Has he really reached across the aisle when he was trying to pass this economic stimulus bill? There's rumors that he's trying to do the same thing with this next bill. If he continues to do this, it leaves very little room for future legislation that we're about to talk about right now, which is immigration, to actually get both sides of the aisle to actually work together on. Right. If we want this to get done, they need to work together.
Right. Are we working together or are we forced to work together? There's like different parts to this plan. OTB fam, what do you guys think about Biden's economic plan? Sound off in the comments. Let's discuss. This is going to be an ongoing topic for the next 4 years. We're still in a pandemic and we're trying to get out of that. And talking about the pandemic, let's move on to our next topic, coronavirus. He said when his first 100 days, 100 million Americans would be vaccinated. He's, past that goal. Now we're at 220 million, I believe was the number that he said. JP, Wadi, what are your thoughts regarding his plans for COVID?
29% of the U.S. population currently is vaccinated. That is the good news. Other good news is that they overperformed. They set 100 million headline before they were elected to say, this is what we're going to bring to the table, with an administration previously that was unwilling to work. And many analysts had rumors that in D.C., the previous administration kind of gave up in actually passing along a plan to the Biden administration. So they pre-planned. They got the best experts all over the world to come together and actually create an infrastructure that was going to lead to these results. However, talking about infrastructure, is it going to be sustainable? Right now, I read a headline just yesterday by the New York Times that there are millions of Americans not going to their second dose appointment, which is something they have to address. Are people in underrepresented communities having the same access to the vaccine as other members of the community? And if these numbers are true and are factual, are they going to help against what rumors are right now and could be the biggest game changer from what we're discussing right now? And are the variants going to do with all this hard work, that all the progress that we've made, are the variants going to put us in a completely different category in the upcoming months with winter coming?
So President Biden called the vaccine rollout one of the greatest logistical achievements. Wadi, do you agree with this? What do you think about his COVID plans?
Yeah, I think COVID is one of the very few areas where President Biden can actually point to and show progress and show development. I mean, the numbers are a little bit to his advantage. The number of people getting vaccinated, the numbers of centers, the number of healthcare workers helping to distribute the vaccine, the number of frontline workers that have already been vaccinated, the number of states that have now opened this to anyone over the age of 16 or 18, for their shots. So this is the one area where he can kind of focus on and give himself a little pat on the back. There are a lot of challenges left ahead. JP hinted on a lot of these. I think a challenge that President Biden's going to have is that Democrats historically during this pandemic have been very cautious, more cautious than many Republican states. Florida, Texas, with Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis, Governor Ducey in Arizona, have been a little bit more relaxed, have allowed people to not be mandated to wear masks. So I'm curious to see, as President Biden continues to tout what he says is record numbers of people getting vaccinated or record distribution, is he then going to be able to cross that bridge and say, now that you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask. You don't necessarily have to keep your distance. I'm curious to see how they're going to allow the economy to open up now that he's saying things are moving forward in a good way.
Wadi, you said this off camera. Real quick, I want to mention it. You said kind of you felt like tonight was a victory speech, right? You felt like they were touting that Corona's kind of passing, and that's kind of the vibe you got, right?
100%. Because it's the one area. In his 100 days, although he made several promises on the campaign, immigration reform as one of them, he has not been able to deliver. No excuses, in my opinion, but this is the one area where he has numbers to support and show progress and development. And that could be a victory now, but it might play against him in the future.
Yeah, during the speech, I was definitely getting those vibes like the pandemic is over. We're moving forward. This is what I did. Pat on the back. Everyone's vaccinated. Let's get to work on the economy. Like, el COVID vino, ya se fue, ya no va a volver, supposedly. But it could come back. I mean, we still have to be vigilant about it. You know what I mean? It's still here, and we shouldn't act like it's really gone. All right, guys, let's move on to our next topic, unless we want to add anything else about COVID. No? All right. So let's talk about immigration. He said a few things about immigration. He mentioned the Dreamers, and he said that he is exhausted on this war on immigration, the immigration war, quotes. JP, what do you think? Do you think he mentioned immigration enough? Was there stuff that was missing? What's your take on it?
Definitely. I would have definitely liked to hear more vision, more scope. He defined kind of what's already in his bill. He did say that he promised legislation and that he presented legislation, but I have a feeling that people that have been following immigration reform policy and trying to get this passed in Congress for so many years had deja vu tonight. You have a president that gets up, uses his microphone, and says, here's my legislation. Congress, it's up to you to pass it. If we remember during Obama's administration, when presented with, oh, hey, why isn't immigration reform passed? He would always delegate the responsibility to Congress to pass immigration reform and always gave that responsibility to them. Here, in this situation, and with the way he's kind of approaching Congress, it's going to be very hard, in my opinion, for him to actually get results that we're all looking for. Let's keep in mind that this current bill has many critics from the undocumented community, leaving out millions of people. So not even both sides are happy with this current piece of legislation. And if you've been following this, that's very likely to happen with this topic, because not everyone is going to be appeased by what eventually gets passed by Congress when it does get passed by Congress. But I did not like what he had to say. Specifically, he did not address the kids at the border, which is a huge deal that many people are looking and blaming these kids for so many things and pinning our community against each other. If you go on social media right now and you read all the comments, our community right now is fighting against each other, saying, well, why are they getting priority, but the people that have been here for so many years haven't? And it's a true reality and a testament to the inability of our country to bring dated immigration policy to this nation, and ignoring the pain, the suffering, the anxiety, the depression that it brings to so many families that have been separated for decades. Fix it. Let's go.
Yeah, it's definitely exhausting. I will agree with him on that part. It's just like, let's toss the ball to this person, or you deal with it, or you deal with it. Somebody deal with it. I'm dealing with it, but you're not supporting me. You know, it's a lot of that, pasando la pelota para allá y para acá on immigration. Wadi, what's your take?
My take is that he should have apologized. Honestly, he should have looked into the camera and said, I'm sorry, I have broken my promise of passing immigration reform in the first 100 days. Or maybe the promise was to get immigration reform in Congress. And to me, just the fact that he sent the bill is not good enough. He should have done a convening of bringing both parties together. He only appointed Democrats. He should have reached across the aisle. I mean, I don't think immigration has really been a heavy priority for Joe Biden. I'm glad we're talking about it, because I don't think he really talked about it during his speech. He hinted at a couple good points. The one area I will give him credit is that it is rare for a politician to have their own bill and to then say, I am willing to essentially break it up into pieces. I am willing to allow you to essentially edit the work I've done. Let's negotiate. Let's work together. So I'll give him credit. I think his attitude is right in the sense that he's willing to work with Republicans, but I want to see his actions. Attitude is great, but I want to see him actually welcome Republicans into the White House, ask them what is it that they're looking for. How can we get a dreamer bill across the line? How can we start expanding legal immigration? Can the VP really get us across the finish line when it comes to working with Central America and providing resources and the partnership there in order to diminish corruption, to diminish a lot of violence, and try to spur economic growth in those areas? Immigration is so embedded in our economy. Immigrants are so embedded in our healthcare systems, in our parts of society. So I really wish he would have given a bigger and more a focal message when it comes to immigration. To me, it's a big missed opportunity for tonight's speech.
I agree. It's a big missed opportunity for me also. He didn't really mention much about Ed Gonzalez, the nominee that he's appointing from Harris County as the new ICE director. He failed to mention a lot of things, and maybe that's because Congress is still playing ping pong with the immigration, and so he's not going to.
I'm all about the vibe.
There's nothing there.
I'm all about the vibe, right? There was no urgency in what he was saying. Like, he just nonchalantly said, I mean, come on, we expect more from you. You talk a big game. You got to come through for us.
You have so many Latinos supporting you, and this is what we get in your first speech. I mean, I think he really did miss the mark there with the Latino voters that voted for him, that support him, and who want to see an immigration reform. Anything else you want to add, Chicos, on immigration?
No, Claudius, let's go.
All right, let's move on to our final topic. We're going to talk about gun reform, which is what Biden was mentioning a lot during his speech today. He talked about expired legislation, which would help lessen mass shootings. He talked about ending the gun violence epidemic, as he called it, with mass shootings in schools. Wadi, what's your take on the gun reform issue?
Yeah, it's such a difficult topic. It's a topic where all Americans will agree on the end goal. We want to stop people from getting killed. We want to stop gun violence. We don't want guns in the hands of bad people. Look, but the problem is we can't agree on what is the actual solution to that end goal. I genuinely believe that this is not politically motivated. Look, on immigration, they play politics. There are members of Congress who genuinely believe something on immigration, but will do something else because of politics. I think on gun control, it's a little bit different. I think there's a genuine divide on the role of guns and the role of the Second Amendment in our nation. And that's what makes it so difficult. We have a similar end goal, but the solution doesn't seem one where we can really find agreement on.
Yeah, this is a very difficult topic, one that's been discussed so many times over and over again. We don't really agree. We're very separated when it comes to that. We all agree that we want these mass shootings, these innocent people who are being killed, to stop being killed by, senseless perpetrators. But it's something that we haven't agreed on. I don't understand. But JP, what's your take on it?
Yeah, since Biden took office, there's been 142 reported mass shootings, according to the Washington Post. So these haven't stopped. Both sides, like Wadi said, are so far apart on this issue, and it's driven by ideology that is completely different. On one end, you have a side that preaches completely against gun usage, and on the other side, you have a side that believes in the right to bear arms, the constitutional privilege to do so. So it's going to take a lot of education, and we've been unable to do so, even in times where we've had those school shootings, where we've seen our young ones fall victim to horrible situations, massacres. We've been unable to come to terms as a nation within our political body, our government, to pass legislation that makes sense. Something that Biden did bring up was bringing past legislation that expired many years ago that had common sense background checks and reforms, and that's kind of what he wants to head into. What that's actually going to entail, we're going to have to wait and see if this is even going to be something that the Republicans are going to want to debate and actually work on with the Democrats.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. I feel like this is going to be a long process, and I don't know if we'll see gun reform in his presidency, honestly, or anytime soon. But something that he did say, which was very surprising for a Democrat, is that he wants to have the American public have trust law enforcement again. He wants to have some type of police reform by the time of George Floyd's death anniversary in June. So what did you guys think about that?
I think that's a key topic. Look, when we all saw the video of George Floyd, we all were paying attention, and we covered this topic last week, the verdict that came out against the officer. And I think what would really help this situation, because I saw a movement come out after George Floyd, where people from all different backgrounds really acknowledge that there's a problem here. I would hope that Congress can work together. From what I'm hearing, if I'm not mistaken, Senator Cory Booker, along with Senator Tim Scott, a Republican and a Democrat, are working together, are trying to bridge that divide, because previously there was a police reform bill led by Republicans when they had the majority in the Senate, and then there was a very different version in the House. Now Booker is doing the job of reaching across the aisle. He is in the majority, but he's trying to bring in Republicans to see if they can get something across the finish line. I think it's important, and hopefully something that Congress can work on, even if it's a small step, but it's needed.
JP, what's your take on police reform before the summer?
He mentioned bringing justice back to the United States of America and back to the families that have been affected by police officers. Yeah, that have overused their force in a variety of situations that have been caught on film. So the main thing here is I think, can he be different from the different administration that definitely chose different sides and chose it purposely to divide different communities? Can we bring and say, we've talked about it on this show, a few bad apples ruin it for so many good, great officers out there who are out there protecting and putting their lives on the line for the majority of the public on a daily basis? Can we say we want reform to help so we make sure that those situations don't happen anymore, but also say we support our officers in blue? We support the people that actually are there to protect us, instead of changing the narrative into such a negative connotation where we consider those that are out there to protect us and out there to be officers of the court. I think we can. And I think if this administration was smart and really wanted effective change, instead of doing political ideology narratives to divide the people more, they would approach it in that manner.
Yeah, I hope we can, because if not, we're not going to have any peace officers. We're not going to have any police officers joining the force, because nobody's going to want to be a cop, because it's a job that no one's grateful for. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a thankless job, pretty much, at this point. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I really do hope we can change that narrative, or that he can change that narrative, I guess. All right, chicos, anything else that we want to touch base on? Anything I missed? Anything you guys?
No,
that stood out to you guys?
You just did such a great job tonight that I know Wadi and I are just like, dang, Claudia, coming with the good commentary.
Oh, Flora from
I'm just
YouTube.
curious.
I'm just kidding.
I'm just curious to see the next 100 days. We just covered the first 100. The next 100 are a lot of challenges ahead.
Yeah.
So people should definitely stay tuned in because we're going to have a lot of great stuff here because those next 100 days are going to be key in so many different ways.
Yeah. Are you guys aware of the summer curse, the president summer curse? He gives us all, supposedly this is what somebody wrote. Like they gave us all this, like nos prometen todo, right? They promise us everything. And then by the time summer comes, it's like crickets. So we'll see if that happens.
By the way,
we'll have it covered here on our show.
I do want to add the 100-day analysis was started. This is some historical knowledge for y'all. Was started during the Great Depression, during Roosevelt's term, as a way to hold politicians accountable, specifically our president, specifically because they were coming from such a bad economic circumstance, to look at the numbers and make sure that the country was headed in the right direction.
And we're coming from a crazy pandemic right now, and economic limbo and everything. So there's some crazy times. So OTV fam, let us know, what did you guys think about the speech tonight? What are you thinking for the future? Is there anything that concerns you? Like, we really want to know your take on things so that we can have better research for you guys on the next show also, and answers maybe.
Absolutely.
All right, chicos, that's everything for tonight. All right, always.
Thank you for watching Outside the Box Show. If you're watching right now, make sure to follow us on Instagram at OTV Show. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Help us get to 200 subscribers. And Facebook, we love you. You're our home base. Thank you for tuning in each week. Wadi?
Yep, that's it for tonight. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you guys next week.
All right, take care, everyone.